I'm your host, Lori Crever. Today we're spending time at Once Upon a Crime bookstore in South Minneapolis, specializing in mystery fiction, old and used books. And I have with me Frances Fyfield, who is a delightful, witty, charming mystery writer who writes of such grisly, brutal things so well. Welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, our pleasure. So your book that we're going to be talking about primarily tonight that just came out is Blind Date.
Yeah.
And why don't you, for our audiences, set the scene for Blind Date?
Well, it has a central character called Elizabeth Kennedy, who at the beginning of the book is right rock bottom. Her sister has been murdered. She was once a police officer who tried to detect that crime and failed dismally. And in the meantime of this, she's been mugged. And she seeks to go to London, to the place where she lives, which is a disused bell tower, and hide away from the world. She doesn't want anything to do with anyone anymore, without realizing, of course, that the murderer of her sister is actually still at large. So that's your rough scenario. But coming in as a subtext to that, why the book is called Blind Date, is that Elizabeth has friends who are going to a dating agency. And I get a lot in about dating agencies in this. The person who runs the dating agency, as opposed to wanting everybody to be happy, has a different agenda altogether.
Yeah.
So I'm talking a bit about the perils of going to a dating agency. And another subtext is all these people are looking for love. Everybody in this book is looking for love.
Yes.
And thankfully, some of them will find it.
It's wonderful. It's so real. Each person at a different point in the story will say, how do you make someone love you? It's almost a recurring theme.
Sort of refrain, yes.
Yes.
Because it's a constant question I suppose many of us ask ourselves. And I've got people of sort of several generations here, whether this is a mother wondering how she can make her daughter love her, or a daughter wondering how she can make her mother love her, since they seem to be so much at odds. And the constant thing of, the opposite sexes looking for one another, looking for Mr. Right, and the avenues one will take to find Mr. Right, and all the odd antics that we get up to in that pursuit.
Oh, yeah.
And also about the dating agencies, that I found from my own experience that anybody who does go to a dating agency, which is a perfectly okay thing to do, I'm not trying to put people off.
Yes.
So in this case it's quite a dangerous pastime. In the case of Blind Date it is. That people are rather ashamed of admitting such a thing. It's sort of like admitting to a need. And if you do go to such an agency and they ask you personal questions, you'll tell them anything. You'll tell them anything. So it did occur to me that someone who ran a dating agency like that could be in a position of peculiar power. But it is an odd thing to be ashamed of, going to a dating agency. Why not? It's, again, part of that pursuit. How do you find somebody to love you?
Yes.
Rich material for a book.
Oh, definitely. But it does seem, for somebody to go to a dating agency, it would be an admission of failure. And then for these individuals, well, the women particularly, to be placing themselves in such a vulnerable position without knowing it, it's a very dangerous game for them to play.
It could turn out to be a very dangerous game to play. Not, I suppose, if one was sensible about it. But I have one, it doesn't give away much of the plot to say I've got one scene in here where someone is so worried about the meeting, so very, very worried about the meeting, that reads all the precautions, meet this person in public, do this, don't invite anybody home until you know them well, all the sensible things that you would do. But she gets so anxious about the whole meeting, so anxious about what she's going to wear, and has such great hopes of the whole meeting, that she falls over on the treadmill, turns up with bruised knees, in such a state of anxiety that it's perfectly easy for the wrong man to approach her and say he's the person from the dating agency and take her away in a taxi. And by that time, anxiety makes all precautions go to the wind.
Yes.
And I could actually just see that happening.
Oh, yes.
A blind date would be invested with so much hope. Perhaps this is the one.
Well, and especially when you've paid money, and the woman who runs the dating agency is so professional, how she presents herself, and all of her rules, and there would be no reason why somebody wouldn't fall right into that and believe that whoever she has set them up with is the optimum mate, relationship, love, cure to all loneliness.
Oh yes, I just thought of the scenario that what would happen if the person who ran the dating agency had an opposite agenda altogether. She didn't want people to be happy. She really wanted them to be really miserable. A sort of jealous old bitch, really.
She is.
With another ambition, that hoping as she screens these young, pretty women, she might find somebody suitable for her very, very weird son.
Yeah. He's not in good shape.
No, but he's very good looking. So you're therefore in a position to lead quite a few people astray.
Yes.
Good looks are very deceptive.
Oh, definitely. Well, there's so many parts of the book that are so good, but one thing that I think you absolutely captured is just the griminess and the pressure and pessimism of living and operating in a big city. You yourself, you're based in London. Is that where you've always lived?
No. I'm a country girl, basically, or I was originally. I grew up in the north of England with pigs and chickens and quite a lot of farmland. My father was a country doctor, and I was one of 4 children. And we were very remote. We were half a mile from the nearest habitation, which was a church and a farm, and then 2 miles from the nearest shops. So my migration to London was later in life, but I often think that people who had been country dwellers actually adapt very well to the city, and the other way around. People who've been city dwellers take to country life. We all need 2 shots. But what you were saying about London being a grimy and isolating place, well, I think all cities are.
Yes.
In one way, especially if you're lonely. I mean, they're absolutely fine if you're successful and on top of everything.
Yeah, and you have a lot of money.
And you have a lot of money, and you can find a decent place to live and all the rest of it. But I put the grimy bits of London in quite a lot of my books because it fascinates me equally. It is a wonderful, wonderful city. But it encompasses, both the rich and the poor. And the odd thing about London is they're very closely juxtaposed, All areas are mixed. So in all areas you will find people living cheek by jowl of very different kinds. But the isolation, yes, is in this book, but we're talking about people who are lonely, who are trying to find a way out of it. And if you are lonely, the city is the worst place to be, absolutely the worst place to be. The presence of crowds around you, all of whom seem to be having a much, much better time than you are, makes you feel worse, makes you feel very much worse. And I try to get that across. But I'm not trying to suggest that London as a place is entirely like that, because these people fight their way through it.
Yes.
The other bit of a London setting that I did use is we have many disused churches which aren't used for community worship anymore.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because the protagonist in this novel is living in a bell tower, up winding stairs. And how did you get the idea to place her there? Because it's such a powerful component of the story and very symbolic also, with the bell that's broken and...
Well, that was, I think, sort of what you can do when you're writing a novel is actually quite a lot of kind of wish fulfillment. I love the idea of living up a bell tower, having height and a view.
Right,
and
how she looks down on the world and nobody can see her.
And nobody can see her, rather like sort of, a fairy tale princess up in the tower, able to look at the world, but the world can't get at her. And this is, her preconception, the world won't be able to get at her in this safe place. But I think because I like the idea of living like that, that I wanted to do it. It's such a sort of like a stronghold, a rather romantic place to be. But I amended the sort of bell tower she would live in when I started to do research, because in order to get it accurate, I had to go and look at a real bell tower and see how it worked, so that I could describe the rooms accurately, where the ropes for the bells are and what the bells look like. And to do this, I went to a working church in Norfolk, which is a very country district by the sea, which has a wonderful set of bells which can be heard 8 miles over the marshes, and a wonderful clock tower with a massive clock and a massive bell to go with it. And I got a very shy little verger in the church to say that he would show me the bells, and he was very, very hesitant, very reserved, quiet little man, who said that yes, he would show me the bell chamber first of all. So we went up to that, which is where the ropes come in, and it's fascinating. And I said, could I see the bells? And he kept prevaricating and saying, No, well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. It's, you know, a bit cobwebby up there.
Or like they're sacred.
I don't know whether I thought at the time he was trying to guard them, or perhaps he just didn't like me. I was, you know, being pushy author.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, after a lot of delay, we went up the stairs to the bell tower, and indeed is very, very creepy. And cobwebs brush against your shoulders, and the steps are very steep, and there is no light. And then you come out into this room with the wind whistling through it, because there is no glass. This is just at the point of the spire.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at these bells, which are wonderful, 9 of them, and the bells are given names. They're given names after the people who made them, and they're inscribed. And just as I was standing, looking in wonder at these things and the wind howling through, the shy little verger who delayed so much pointed at the biggest bell, which I was standing next to, and said, "That is the bell for the clock. The biggest bell is for the clock." At that point, it was noon. If you can visualize, it's like going, it was not just once, but 12 times, the maximum note, the bell that can be heard 8 miles over the marshes, and you are standing next to it. That was the point when I turned round and saw the shy little verger curled up in the corner, catatonic with laughter, a total setup.
Oh!
I thought butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, but this was the trick. This was the trick. Get the visitor up the bell tower just on the point of noon.
Oh my goodness.
But I therefore, in fiction, amended Elizabeth's bell tower and was absolutely quite certain in my own mind that it was not going to have working bells in it. They would be dead. They would be disused. Someone would have taken their clappers out.
Mm-hmm.
But in the book, the bells, the dead bells, again, do feature largely in the denouement.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the reason why they're not ringing. I mean, that's really the reason why they're not ringing.
As we would say here in America, you have been there and done that.
I've been there and done that. Got the T-shirt for ringing bells.